Yeah, I know, baby. I just wanted a full Uber. That's it. I just wanted a full Uber. Call the cops or refund my money. Because you're not, if you refund my money, I'll get out the car. I cannot refund you your money. Why not? Why not? You
Oh.
you are retarded. I requested a call. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh.
What the fuck is wrong with you? You got the right fucking.
It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing when you let your nuts hang.
In the criminal justice system, sexually-based offenses are considered especially heinous. In New York City, the dedicated detectives who investigate these vicious felonies are members of an elite squad known as the Special Victims Unit. These are their stories.
I just want to share something. Before I show y'all the other side of my face, I want to know if I'm wrong. Because I'm very open. Why was I doing Uber today? I picked this lady up from the airport, right? I pick her up. We getting on about the ride. We about 15 minutes from her destination. She goes, it's hot in here. So I turn the AC up. No questions asked. I just turn it up. She goes, I just don't understand. I'm like, huh? She like, I just don't understand. This is a comfort car. Why are you doing comfort if you're not going to do what people ask you to do? I'm like, well, I just turned it up. Like, it's going to take a little second, you know, for it to cool down in here. Like, bitch, I just turned it up. Like, literally not even a minute ago. Like, what do you think this is? Like, we're not sitting in an industrial fan. Like, I just turned it up. She's like, it's because you have the windows down and I can't feel it. I'm like, well, the windows are cracked. For one, they were actually cracked. I'm like, I keep on cracked because a lot of people get in the car and they are sick. I'm explaining this shit to this bitch. She goes, I don't care. It's about my comfort. I ordered a comfort car. You don't need to be doing comfort if you don't know. I'm like, so why are you yelling at me though? Like, I'm like, who are you talking to? Why are you yelling at me? This is kind of crazy over some AC. She's like, I'm sweating. I'm like, actually, I think it would best suit you if another driver picked you up, actually. So I'm going to take you back to where I picked you up from. And we're just going to leave that at that. That was not good enough for her. She is going off. She is irate in the backseat, tripping. So I pull over. I'm like, actually, yeah, I'm going to need you to get out right here. So I pull over in Hayeville. We're off the highway. Pull over in Hayeville. I'm like, can you actually get out? She's like, no, I'm not getting out until you give me a refund. I'm not going to do shit. Mind you, she's recording this whole exchange. I'm like, yeah, but you can just get out the car and I can end this trip and Uber can refund you. I'm not doing nothing. You're going to pay me or you're going to take me home. I'm like, well, we're going to be sitting here all day because I'm not doing neither. Like, Uber will refund you. Get out of the car. In what world is it ever acceptable to sit in a stranger's car and then try to insinuate that you feel threatened after refusing to leave what you are perceiving as a threat, which is me asking you to get out the car? So then after that, I get out of the car and I flag somebody down because I'm recording. I flag a driver down, ask him to call 911 because she's just showing her ass. So I open the other driver's side door, like the passenger door. She goes, oh, bitch, you think you gonna touch me? I said, no, but I actually want you to get out the car. Can you please get out the car? Like, you're escalating this shit for no reason. Like, I'm not in the mood. Like, it's just a lot going on in my personal life to be dealing with some foolishness, because this is foolishness. This bitch goes in her bag to get a weapon. So you know what I did? I got back in the car because what the fuck is this? I got back in the car. I sit in my driver's seat. I'm like, so you are going to do what exactly? She like, if you think you're going to touch me, da-da-da-da, bitch, da-da-da-da. I said, okay. So I proceeded to grab my mace and I maced the fuck out of her in self-defense. Because if you're going to be behind me with a weapon and insinuate that you're going to harm me, I'm going to act in my best interest, which is to protect myself. And that's what I did. I maced the shit out of her. So then after that, she proceeds to lunge from the back and attack me. You see my fucking eye? This didn't even happen in the car. I get out the car because the car is full of fucking mace and I have bronchitis. I get out the car. This bitch runs up on me and tries to gouge my eye out. I have scratches in my eye. My eye has stitches. Fighting a bitch I don't even know is crazy. crazy.
What to do, everyday people, man? It's your boy PJ. Today we back with another lit video. Back in the confessional. Yes, we staying lit, big dog, man. Shout out to my everyday people who rock with me every day. Shout out to my player partner, Lucky Wizard Deals. He keeps it lit. Like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Let me know what y'all think about it in the comment section. Hit the links below. We got HiveMindLabs.com where you can unbig that back with a little bit of diet exercise. Man, you can lose weight and feel great. Look, we got Maricola in the building. She's an Uber driver and she drives in Atlanta. Okay, stop messing with people in Atlanta. Okay, they not for the weak. Everything going on in there is crazy. Anyway, also Tabitha Turner. She also tells you she from the streets too. She from Zone 6, East Side, East Atlanta Center. Now, I don't know if she from there, but I'm just saying. Like, she got it. She not playing with y'all, okay? So, if she worked for ESPN, she released a press statement a few days ago. Because this actually happened over a week ago. Like, this happened a while ago. It's just really now starting to really make headlines. So, let's get into the press conference with with Tabitha Turner. Okay, let's get into a press conference, her and her lawyer, where they actually released video footage of the altercation. I was trying to find other video of altercation, but I'm gonna try to squeeze some in here and just so y'all can see what's going on, and maybe we can get that. All right.
Is that good? Much better. Okay. Thank you for noticing that. Ready? Good morning. I'm attorney Miguel Dominguez with the Dominguez Law Firm, MIGUEL. Dominguez is DOMINGUEZ. This is my client, Tabitha Turner, TABITA, Turner, common spelling. Thank you all for being here this morning. We're going to do a couple of things today to make sure that the public in particular has a good grasp on what occurred to my client, and especially in light of the defendant's actions and how she's taken to social media and the false narrative that has been released. But I thought it'd be helpful for you all to center the room right off the rip, instead of the public and the media having to rely on what an attorney says. I thought it appropriate to start right with the video that my client was able to capture the moment that she suffered this really violent and brutal attack. Can you play the video from Ms. Turner's cell phone, please? We'll just play 30 seconds. Do we have the audio, please? Go ahead and pull it back. Yes, and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, our PR guy sent that out with the actual notice for today. Is there a mute button? Okay. Is there audio to the system in here? No. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. It's the system, because the laptop is all the way up. It's just the system. Well, sorry about that, folks. The audio was important to show, and so I'm sorry that that's not on for you guys right now, but I will send it out to anybody who wants it. What you were going to hear and obviously see is that at some point in, well, let me start from the beginning. Let me first start by saying that Ms. Turner has been in the media herself. She's a well-respected and cared for former basketball player here in Atlanta. She has risen through the ranks in her career as a sports reporter, currently working with the Atlanta Dream, with the Atlanta Hawks, spots on ESPN and all the other things. And she was traveling for work this past Saturday on June 21st when she arrived back home in Hartsfield, at Hartsfield Atlanta Airport, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta Airport. She ordered an Uber, just like any other passenger who arrives and trying to get home. One of the issues in this case that we will have, separate and apart from what the driver did, is that she ordered a comfort Uber, a luxury type Uber. And when you get that on the app, as some of you may be aware, you can even put your preferences as to whether you want a driver talking to you or not, right? But you certainly can put, temperature and things of that nature. And so she ordered a cool Uber. And one thing that she noticed when her Uber pulled up right off the rip was that this was clearly not a comfort vehicle, number one. And secondly, and more importantly, what she realized, and I don't know how many of you were here in Atlanta on this past Saturday, but it was quite the scorcher. And what she realized right off the rip in the vehicle pulling up is that all the windows were down. And so she put her bag in and she got in, and she was, a little thrown off given what she inputted into the app, that this is what she got and that there was no air conditioning on and the windows were down and we've got 90-degree plus weather outside. But she's a kind and patient person, and so she didn't say anything thinking, well, surely when we get out of the airport and we get onto the expressway, these windows will be rolled up and the air will be put on as soon as all of this hot air comes rushing into the vehicle. That didn't happen. And so the first communication she had with the driver was to ask that the air conditioning be put on and that the windows be rolled up. I start with that because, believe it or not, that's the whole thing that jumped this whole incident off. Just the request for the air to be turned on and the windows to be rolled up. The driver did not respond verbally, but she did put the air conditioner on, but she didn't roll the windows up. And so as the ride went on, the vehicle obviously did not cool off. My client was really hot. She was sweating. She addressed the driver again, asking that the windows be rolled up. The response that she got from the driver was not kind and was not friendly. The driver was clearly irritated by, I guess the demands of a passenger at that point. And so what happens next is really alarming. That it's one thing for an Uber driver to be having a bad day and respond verbally in a way that may not be customer friendly, but to pull over on the expressway suddenly in the emergency lane with vehicles flying by, coming out of the airport, and to decide that you're going to tell the passenger, you know what, we're done, you need to get out with your bags on the side of the expressway, is not a reasonable request by any stretch of the imagination. It was unsafe for her to do so, and it was completely unreasonable to do, especially given the fact that there may have been a disagreement about whether the air should be on or not, but there certainly wasn't enough for the trip to be canceled. So my client, as she's interacting with the Uber driver, decides to fast forward this situation and try to come up with a solution. And the solution that she posed is one of two options. Either you get me somewhere safe, which my preference is for you to take me home, or you drop me off at the airport where you pick me up so I can get another Uber. Or if you're demanding that I get out of this vehicle, I'll get out of this vehicle once you call the police, and the police is here, and you refund my ride. These were completely reasonable options. My client, as you would have seen and heard the audio had our AV been working, she was completely calm at the time of reiterating on camera the suggestion of how this could be worked out. Unfortunately for my client, especially given what she's experienced to this point, the Uber driver decided that neither one of those options were good for her. Ultimately, what the Uber driver decided to do was to escalate this into a violent interaction. How did she do that? She got out of the vehicle, she came around to my client's door, opened the door after having pulled out my client's bags and set them out. She opened the door and attempted to physically remove my client from the vehicle by grabbing the book bag that she was carrying and getting into a struggle and demanding for her to get out. My client, obviously understanding the risk level and the danger at that point, decided that she was not going to do that and she was going to wait for the police to arrive. At that point, the Uber driver gets back into the driver's seat, and what happens next is now what you just saw, which is now my client is realizing this is getting a little out of control. I'm going to start recording for myself. And so she starts recording, and what you see is that as she starts recording, she is reiterating to the driver, and you will hear this, what the issue is about, right? The windows are rolled down, and it's hot in here. And she even uses a term of endearment that's escaping me right now. She may have said "hun" or something like that, referring to the driver and saying, "Look, all I wanted was a cool Uber, okay? And so, you know, we need to get the police or whatever the case may be, but I'm not getting out." And as she's having that interaction with the driver and pans her cell phone towards the window to show that the window is down, it's at this moment that suddenly the Uber driver turns into the back seat and maces my client in the face. That was her response to this. To retrieve a weapon and use it offensively against a passenger who is literally complaining, but in the back seat, not being violent, not being irate. And that's not something that I'm saying. When you review the video and you have the audio, you'll see how calm my client is at that point. All right? She's maced. At the time that she's maced, it is clear on the video she is not being violent. She has not touched the driver in any way. She's not made a threat of violence of any sort. And this is the reaction of the Uber driver. When that happens, the incident doesn't end there for my client. This driver wants to finish the job. And she exits the vehicle again and comes back around, having now blinded my client. And as my client is literally trying to gather herself and remove herself from the vehicle, not being able to see, she is then grabbed and physically assaulted again, to which she has injuries that match those. Her hair was pulled out. As you can see, she has locks. We have that as evidence. All of this has been preserved and also shared with law enforcement. At some point in the altercation, and this is where it gets ripe for this Uber driver to do what she's really done, to really, to add insult to injury, to physical injuries. What happens next is my client is in fear of being pushed out into traffic, into really, really being severely hurt during this interaction. So all she can do is hold on for dear life. She can't see, and the Uber driver has a hold of her hair. She's physically assaulting my client, and in the process of that, the back and forth physically between them, that is the point where the Uber driver has the injury to her eye, which she then goes on social media to exploit. But this is only after my client has not only been physically assaulted, but she's been maced. A passerby, a good Samaritan, notices what's going on, calls the police. The police arrive. The police perform their investigation. Unfortunately, at that point, the officer is in the position of having a he said, she said, because the Uber driver is claiming that my client was the aggressor. And so he can't figure that out. My client, of course, provides the video that she has just taken, but unfortunately, according to the report, the officer could not view the video off of her phone because of the sun glare. I mean, that's what's reported. At some point, the defendant is allowed to leave. My client is free to leave. No arrests are made. But as happenstance would have it, the officer was kind enough to offer to transport my client to the MARTA station. Clearly, he wasn't going to leave her on the side of the road. And when that happens, he asked to see the video again, which he should have done. He could have went in his car in a dark place and viewed the video to begin with. That might have alleviated some of this, but nevertheless, he had the presence of mind to view the video again. And it's at that time that he realizes, okay, this is not such a, I can't figure this thing out. This video tells me everything I need to know. You're 100, my client, Ms. Turner, you're telling the truth. You were the victim here. This Uber driver that I let go is actually the aggressor. So warrants are sworn out. As I understand them, they're active out of Hateville Police Department. Officer Cushing, I believe, was the responding officer. And according to his report, those criminal charges included battery and simple battery. And frankly, I fully expect those to be, just the foundation of the criminal action here against this Uber driver, because clearly a weapon was used. And so I think that there are, as a former prosecutor, I think there are going to be additional charges that are more serious than what is currently on the books. Now, that's what happened. Let me tell you how we get here today, because my client had no intention whatsoever in having this case, particularly a criminal situation where there are warrants out for the defendant. Thankfully, she didn't lose her life or get pushed out into traffic as a result of this, despite her injuries. But the reason we're here today is because of what happened next. And it's really quite egregious, okay? The defendant decides, realizing that she's got a problem here in the fact that she has maced someone for no reason whatsoever that was in her car while being a paying customer, decides that she's going to take to social media. Well, how did she do that? She stalked my client first and foremost. She found out upon stalking her that, oh, this happens to be a celebrity of sorts, or quasi-celebrity, someone who is in the public eye. This is great. Now I can really put the screws to this person by attacking their reputation. And so the reason you're here today, I don't think you would be here otherwise, is that this person posted a TikTok video, 2 that she's posted so far that we're aware of, that has over 1.5 million views, where she is lacing her narrative with falsehoods and misrepresentations, trying to get the public to turn against, this violent and unreasonable passenger that just so happens to be in the public eye. We see this time and again. This is about clout chasing. This is about taking advantage of somebody that she thinks has something to lose. And we're here to fight that and to push back. And we ask the community to push back. And we get it. For those of you out on social media who took the Uber driver at her word, we know that there are Uber drivers every day who are hardworking people who don't take money from anyone and perform that job to the best of their abilities. And we embrace all those people. But for those like this young lady who decide to capitalize and to add insult to injury and harm regular working people like my client, there are ramifications for that. And you best believe that this is just the beginning. We will set this record straight. Why? Because my client, unfortunately, has had many ramifications over the last 48 hours. She's been contacted by league representatives, both NBA and WNBA, about her role and participation in this. Thank God she had the presence of mind to videotape what she did when she started. She's had, even her agent, who had nothing to do with this, has received negative contact from folks on social media. All right? The Hawks, the Dream, all of these executives and all of these organizations have received, even during her game, which broadcast yesterday, she had to deal with all of the commentary that was coming in from the public about how horrible of a person she is and what she did to this poor Uber driver and how the league could be employing someone violent like this that does this to regular working people. It's not the league's fault, right? They're a victim of these lies as well. And there will be hell to pay for what she did. Not to mention the fact that Uber, who charges their customers a heightened rate for certain vehicles, sends her this type of vehicle with this type of driver and puts her in this position to begin with. We'll be dealing with them too. So we wanted to come here today to my intent, as you can see, was to give you the video up front and for you to see for yourselves and make your own judgments about what's on there and what isn't. I think it's important to also point out to you, in the police report itself, not only is the officer very clear after he's conducted his investigation who the primary aggressor is, which is the Uber driver, Ms. Smith. But in addition to that, he also points out that the spot where Ms. Turner was being demanded to leave the vehicle was extremely dangerous in his opinion. You will find that in the report. His assessment is that it wasn't safe for her to be out there due to the traffic. He also goes as far as to put some of his experience about that particular location in the report. He says, for example, that that area is highly known for sex trafficking victims. He puts that in the report. He puts in the report that he just investigated a homicide not too far from that very location just in February. All of that is in the report. So he's making the assessment right off the rip in his investigation that it was not reasonable at all. Sorry about that.
Sorry. Thank you.
Not being a gentleman. Sorry. It was not reasonable for Ms. Turner to exit where the driver was asking her to exit. In addition to that, and this is the last thing that I'll say before I open it up to questions. For the public and for the media covering this, here's what's interesting. First of all, if you look at the TikToks that this young lady decided to post, there are contradictions and things that don't make sense. You know, I won't address really what she said, but I think it's important to note that for someone who is alleging that my client is the aggressor, that my client supposedly has a weapon, and that's the reason why she maced my client. I think it's important to note that as she's telling the story on TikTok, she leaves the vehicle to try to get my client out. This is allegedly after she's been threatened with a weapon. And then she gets back in the vehicle, right? Turns her back on a person who's allegedly in the back seat with a sharp weapon, and then decides to mace my client. Then after that's done and she's already cleared the threat of my client, then she gets back out and continues a physical altercation and a physical assault on my client. How do we know that? Well, she says in her own TikTok, when this happened to me, right? And she's pointing to the camera to show the injury to the eye. We weren't in the vehicle. This happened outside of the vehicle. She says that herself, right? In other words, there's no allegation at the time of this police report on scene and at the time of her TikTok video that my client assaulted her in any way in the vehicle. The public can see that for themselves. Just look at her video, okay? And so that's really important. The last thing I will tell you about that same issue is that, and the public doesn't know this whole idea that she has perpetrated to get the public to side with her against my client, that my client had a sharp weapon, which she's apparently doesn't have the language to say what it was. And I submit to you humbly that that's because there was no weapon and she was just trying to leave it vague purposefully. But this person who says that there was a weapon that was being yielded against her that made her feel threatened, and then maces only in self-defense as a response to that weapon, neglects to tell the police officers whatsoever that that's the reason she maced my client. She never mentions my client having a weapon to the police officer, right? 2 days later, she calls this officer. You don't have to take my word for it. It's in the report. 2 days later, she calls the officer and says, hey, by the way, I'd like to add to my story. I'd like for you to put in your report that I'm telling you that Miss Turner had a weapon. She had a sharp weapon, and that's why I maced her. 2 days later, you're telling me you're sitting as an Uber, an innocent person on the side of the road, you have now used a weapon against a passenger, and you don't tell the police officer that comes on scene that might be arresting you in the next couple of minutes that the reason you maced your passenger was because you were threatened with a sharp object? That escapes you? Of course it doesn't. That's not reasonable. What happened is she had time to think and realize that what she did wasn't reasonable and that she was possibly going to be in trouble. And she tried to backtrack and then create these videos and call the police department and give this false narrative. And we know it's not true. And that's all documented. The police didn't buy it, and that's why she's on her way to jail if she hasn't been picked up already. All right? I'll open it for questions.
Ms. Turner, what backlash have you received, and how is it impacting you and your family?
I've received threats via social media about my karma that's coming to me. Defaming my character, calling me all kinds of names, saying just things about why I attacked her, and just how horrible a person I am, and how when they became mother, like attacking me as a mother, trying to paint me as somebody violent. They flooded my social media with threats. They've reached out to people I work with and work for. Last night, leaving the studio, my producer walked me to my car. They offered to follow me on the highway. I have a 1-year-old daughter that I like to take to the games with me. And I can't take her because I don't know who's going to be there to attack me based on what she's saying. I have opportunities with the league that I don't know if are going to happen now because of what she's saying. People questioning my character because of what she's saying. I just wanted to go home. after work and see my daughter. I've gotten threats, and I'm so grateful to the Dream for standing by me and for telling me that if I need extra security, they got me. I didn't ask for this.
So what do you want to say to that Uber driver?
Let's not say anything to the Uber driver.
I
Go
have a
ahead.
question for Ms. Turner. When you got into the vehicle and you asked for the air condition to be turned on or the windows to be rolled up, your attorney said that the driver became agitated. But what did she actually say to you? What was the excuse for not rolling up the windows?
Man,
Sure. Briefly.
that customers who are sick, she likes to leave the windows down in case customers are sick, and that she never rolls them up on her rides.
When you persisted, did she say anything else?
It was the same thing, yeah.
And as far as Uber, this could be for either one of you, what are the next steps that, if any, that you plan to take against Uber?
I haven't communicated with Uber yet, and of course we will look at, here's the thing. As it stands right now, this is an isolated incident, right? But I imagine when we start looking at this thing and I start looking into Uber and how the whole process works,